This conference will now be recorded.
At 7 p.m., 7:01, we will bring the December 14th, 2022 Tilton Budget Committee meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, who is up first? Do we want to?
I knew Judy was coming. The snow's coming down.
All right, so our plan is that I'll just go through a very high level here,
Sure.
and then we have both the chief as well as the director of public works, my peers here,
If they want to
help answer any questions.
Sure. Okay, great. They
So,
have anything they want to share? Yeah.
so first of all, I used the budget that I sent to you last week. So this is the budget that you've been studying, so that way there's no confusion between what you've seen and anything tonight. And then also you have two other sheets, areas of increase and areas of decrease. So these represent budget lines that were over $1,000 and over 10% either increase or decrease.
Were these already on?
Yeah, it's just a
Yeah,
it's just a subset,
Okay.
basically highlighting the larger increases.
Sure.
And so if you have a budget line that's $100 in one year and then $150 in the next year, it's a $50 increase, but you're looking at a 50% increase. So it sort of weeds out those types of lines. Not saying that you're not going to want to look at them and ask questions about them, but these are the bigger lines that are affected. So if you'd like, and I've also removed the encumbrance items from this, so you're not going to see where there's an area of decrease, something that was an encumbrance added to the 22 budget, and then all of a sudden that's gone in 23 and there's a huge area decrease. So this is net of encumbrances. That's still going to, those things are still going to show in the budget document itself because that's our legal budget as compared to 23 to 22. So if you take a look at the areas of increase first, if we go through those on the new sheets, yep. So, and this is right from the budget document. So first of all, the administrative compensated absences. These are items that when someone is eligible to purchase time, their paid time off, this is where it's charged to. We're actually going to overspend the line in 22 because of people not being able to take all their time off this year because of being short-staffed. And then you'll see that is going to be a recurring theme. That's also going to happen in the other compensated absences lines. But in any case, so it's been increased slightly for 23. Dues, we've added ICMA, which is a local government municipal resource group. It's has a lot of added resources for the management, local government management. And this was one of Jeannie's initiatives. The administrative equipment rent and maintenance, yes.
What added resources is there?
So those are policies, sample policies, procedures. They're studies, all sorts of different things to help management, guide management, help
Management of the governing body.
Local government management.
So it's,
But in effect, it does help the governing body because if management is searching and researching things, it's for the purpose of advising the governing body.
the local government center supplies most of the stuff you just.
So this is over and above, and it's more in depth than New Hampshire Municipal Association.
So does that mean that the attorney's line will decrease?
No,
So it stands
No,
for
it's-
International City Management Association.
yeah, but it's local government management resources. The administrative equipment rent maintenance line, that's an increase for the shredder service that I spoke about at your last meeting. The miscellaneous expenses, we're anticipating, most of these are inflation-related items that we're anticipating we're going to spend more money on in '23. Consulting outside contracts, that's the ADA consultant that we've kept $1 in that line in previous years. So this is to hire a consultant to advise on what needs to take place in town hall to make it ADA compliant.
Are there bids out there or anything already? Or?
I believe Jeannie has put requests out. I don't know if there's a formal RFP, but she's trying to get those now. I think she has. I think she may be bringing one to the board tomorrow night, as a matter of fact.
Exterior school street lighting.
Right. And there's there's issues of handicap parking. There's all kinds of things that are that because of the town hall assessment that was done this last year. There's a number of items that have to be addressed. So
The ramp on the side is not.
that's correct.
Hasn't
really?
been since it was built.
That's
It
right.
was never compliant.
Yeah. So in any event, that's what that's for. And what goes along with that is also in the second from the bottom line in the administration there, where we're going from 4,000 to 45,000 for the assessment work. So that's work within town hall that would be addressed partially by that consultant. The health insurance, there were personnel changes within plans. So, where someone had a buyout, now they're on the town plan. That's what accounts for that increase. The electricity and heat, these are all distribution related. We're locked into our supply prices, and we've got great prices for both electric and gas, but it's the distribution portion. And until we start to get some bills for 23 to really see what those distribution rates are, some towns have budgeted upwards of 70% for the distribution portion of their electricity.
I think
So-
the increase starts in January, right?
That's correct. Yeah. So we'll know before town meeting, and if we need to make adjustments, we can.
Okay, I'm gonna backtrack a little bit.
Sure.
Sorry. Is the shredder service a contract service?
So it is. It's based on the number of tips and pickups that they do. It's $38 when they pick it up.
Did it
So
go out for bid or?
no. This is it's basically expanding what we already have at the PD and just putting one in town hall. We have to go through. I think I talked about it last week, but all the documentation in the basement. There's an awful lot that has to be gone through in the locked storage room.
Right,
So.
I have another company, I'll give you their name.
Oh, okay.
If they can give you a price, I know it'll be better, so.
Well, that's not just for that, but that's included in there. So that's what.
Yeah, they do mobile and on-site.
Yeah, I think this was $38 per tip, and we're anticipating once a month during the year. And
Picking up like a 65-gallon.
yeah, and we don't even do once a month at the PD. So pretty voluminous things. But in any event, please pass that along.
So you said it's $38 a month?
Well, we're anticipating once a month. It's $38 each time they pick it up.
Each location, 38?
Yes. Well, when they pick it up, but
So, I mean, that's less than $1,000.
yeah, and it's not even they don't even pick it up monthly at the PD.
So it's not a huge expense.
No, I think maybe 4 times this last year, maybe.
Yeah, 38 times 12 is only $456.
Yeah.
It's
So-
only a $300 less, 300 increase in the budget anyway, so.
Right.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but in any event, again, it's over $1,000, and the line is over 1,000, and the increase was over 10%. So that's why it appears. So in any event, in the senior center line, that line for the senior center maintenance, that includes electricity, heat, a whole number of things. So that is the majority of the reason for that increase.
Can you go back up to the line above?
Town hall assessment.
So what you're saying is they don't have any specific items yet? Because they are hiring a consultant to do this, and you said that was why the increase to the 4,500, but yet they don't have a list of items to be fixed.
There is a list of items. It's just they're not all quoted out. I don't have the assessment myself, but if you want more information on that, Jeannie could speak in detail
Well,
about
the
that.
problem is typically unless you're doing some major reconstruction work of a municipal building, you don't have to bring it under 100% complete ADA compliance. So, I mean, the ramp has been a joke since it was built. So that probably should be fixed.
Right.
But these other things may not have to be done now.
Yeah.
They may be things that are on a list to be done in the future.
Right. So I
Maybe
don't.
some major reconstruction.
Yeah, I do not have the list, but
So this
we can
amount
get.
could actually be premature.
Jeannie was the one that budgeted this, so I would say we can get more information from her or schedule it. I would schedule her to come and talk to you about the assessment and the work that needs to be done. So in any event, in the town clerk tax collector lines, there's increasing training and dues, and it's mainly training for the deputy who will be going into her second full year. And then the government reimbursements, that's just 100% revenue match. That's essentially vital records. So we're just matching what our revenue has been, which so it's not a big thing. In finance, under debt, so the TAN increase, this is increasing for the interest rate increase. We are currently in a lock until January 15th for 3.75%. And the Fed today increased rates 0.5%. So the prevailing rate is somewhere in 4.25, 4.5, somewhere in there, I believe. What we'd be looking at for municipality as of right now. But if you look at the different time periods, the 1, the 5, and the 10-year, they almost look like spaghetti the way the rates are listed. So normally you see rates stacked, based on the length of time and the risk associated with it. But this is the 7th increase that the Fed has done in 2022, and it's all intended to provide a soft landing. So increasing rates enough to bring down those demand-oriented inflationary items, but not restrict the flow of money supply so much that it causes a recession. And that's supposedly the soft landing, which remains to be seen. But I'm sure everyone has recognized that fuel and utility or fuel prices have come down some. So it's anybody's guess what we're going to be looking at in rates. If for some reason the rate that we could get for our TAN is lower than 3.75% in January, then we can reprice that. But right now we can, we're still in a lock position, so we can take advantage of that rate. And the municipal tax exempt rate is still higher than that currently. In the debt, that's the final step into the full bond payment. So that's what we'll be seeing each year. That's for the PD. In information technology, this is primarily additional systems, replacement systems and hardware based on the schedule that we have. And then in services, that's primarily for security, additional cybersecurity, security software, and intrusion detection services on our firewalls. In land use, the increase for the technician, that's primarily due to a wage adjustment increase for 23. In advertising, it's been.
Is that 3% or is this already been given?
Has not been given, but that's bringing up to essentially what the secretaries for boards make.
And where'd they get from local towns?
I'm sorry?
Where'd they get the base wage from secretary for boards?
From what we pay the town's boards and commissions, what they make per hour.
Is there 3 secretaries that get paid?
3 or 4. 4. Wait, 1, 2, 3. There might be a fourth.
Well, there's
There's
Parks,
3.
Parks Commission.
Parks.
That just started paying.
Yep, Parks,
Okay.
Conservation, and
Budget.
Budget, and
Planning board.
no, planning and zoning are handled by
Oh.
full-time employee now.
Okay.
That's 3. Yeah, I feel like I'm missing one.
Parks,
Parks budget, conservation.
conservation.
Yep, Conservation, Parks, and Budget. Yeah. Mhm. So anyway, on the second page, so land use advertising, that's based on the activity that we've had, and they anticipate that to continue. Health and welfare, there was an additional member added to the Senior Center Executive Committee. So that's for the additional stipend. In Public Works, the first 2 increases are, again, because of distribution costs for electricity and heat. Gas, diesel, we had estimated higher fuel costs, and that's, taking into account a full year. So, if you look at what happened last year and how fuel varied through the year, we just don't want to get caught on that. Winter sand and salt, Kevin did a great job in locking in prices, but they've gone from $74 a ton in 22 to $88 a ton for 23. So that's what accounts for that, and primarily for that increase. Sanitation, residential solid waste, the increase in tipping fees was significant. And also it's redirecting some of the tonnage that we're going from recycling into solid waste. So that line increased. And the increases from Wheelabrator are pretty significant going each and every year, whereas it's been pretty moderate over the last 7 years. They are now catching up. And so we're going through a 14% increase from 22 to 23. But then when you factor in the additional tonnage that we're anticipating will be in solid waste flow, that's why that increase. Curbside contract. So we now will only have 1 contract for curbside collection, eliminating the recycling. So there's the additional costs in that particular curbside solid waste contract is what you see there. In the police budget, if you recall, with the vacancy that we had for 22, that particular chief's line was budgeted for half the year. So this reflects a full year increase. The merit pool is being increased because it now will cover additional people, which are non-union staff. And the equipment maintenance, repairs, and tech, this is increasing primarily due to a maintenance agreement for all the communications equipment that we have at the PD that needs to be under contract. Miscellaneous expense line, again, these are very inflation-oriented items. It's the little stuff that you buy that seems to add up. So it's again, this is everything from refreshments for meetings to special plaques or awards for service, all kinds of different things. Anything that doesn't fit anywhere else basically is budgeted in this line. The new uniforms, this is increasing, as well as the officer stipends because of additional staffing. And then in the culture and recreation, that budget is going up $500, and it's reflecting $1,000 to be spent for each of the events. And that's, I believe that's spring, summer, and fall events.
Can I ask a question on the sanitation?
Yeah.
So you may have talked about this at previous meetings that I missed, but where is the savings reflected in the budget for getting rid of recycling?
Sure. So in 22, we had a $142,000 contract for recycling collection.
And that's now
So
been removed.
that's zeroed out. And you'll see that on the areas of decrease as we go through that. So those are the areas of increase, the major, if you will, areas of increase. If you go to the areas of decrease in admin line, the merit pool, we're going from 4% to 3%, so there was a reduction there. Administrative printing, we're printing fewer reports. Our workers' compensation was reduced, and that's purely based on experience and claims. The salaries for moderator, supervisors of the checklist, and then the election registration lines, these are all reduced because there's one election in 23 versus the 3 in 22. Town clerk, tax collector, the deed research reflects the new vendor pricing. So we have a brand new vendor doing the deed research. It's less money. And then also the election preparation, again, the fewer elections during the year. The budget committee, this was adjusted based on 21 and 22 activity, the number of meetings that you have, the length of time, and just the overall efficiency that Lisa Jones takes care of for your meetings. Health and welfare, animal control. We had gone last year to a per use plan with a different group for animal control, and we have had no activity, so that was reduced due to the lack of activity because we didn't know what to expect this last year. In public works, so the merit raise pool, that was reduced some again, the 4% to 3%. Street lighting came down due to the LED installation. Uniforms, and the DPW director can explain if you have questions about the elimination of the vendor contract, but they now purchase clothing for the crew. Building repairs, they completed a project that was budgeted this last year that's not in the 23 budget. Subcontractors, this is primarily due to work that's being done every other year and not budgeted in 23. Then here you have the commercial solid waste. We're anticipating reduced activity. This is our haulers that we bill. So if there is a recession or if there is a reduction in business activity, there's going to be a reduction in trash. This is offset by revenue as well. And then in curbside recycling, you see the reduction of $142,000 in the budget. In the police line, there's a reduction in vehicle maintenance, and that's due primarily to the new vehicles in the fleet and the moving on of the Crown Vics out of the fleet.
So what maintenance do we still have for 21,000? Are they all new or no?
No. So there's still
we have at least 7 to 8 vehicles that are all close to 100 to 150,000. That's miles, not hours.
The newest of those is an 18. So in part-time wages, there was a reduction there, and that was based on full staffing levels for the rest of the officers' wages. Investigative expense was based on existing inventory and needs. The heat, this was one of the balancing items. We weren't sure what we were going to be looking at for a full year for the heat and electricity of the building. So this is balancing out the fact that we use more electricity for the utilities there than we do gas. And then the weapons expense, that was reduced primarily because the chief was successful in doing a trade-in and purchase of new guns and holsters, which he can explain, and also because of lower ammo costs, as they'll have sufficient inventory from the end of this year. So those are the big items. I'll just direct you to the very end, if you would. Just so on page 16 of the budget, this is where you'll find the existing fund balances for our capital reserve funds. And then more importantly, on page 17, these are the warrant articles that we'll be looking at for this coming meeting. So the Caliph Hill engineering project, there's a $100,000 reimbursable expense for the engineering to find out what a cost is, as long as the overall cost of the road reconstruction is over $3.2 million, including engineering costs.
Because the state matches or something.
The state is going to provide 100% of the funds up to that point. So, but it is, this is essentially a referendum at town meeting. Do you really want to proceed forward with this project?
Did we have a telephone last year too?
There has been in the past. I don't believe
Yeah.
it was in last year's though.
I'm wondering, we might want to know where those funds went. If it's-
There were no funds raised for Caleb Hill Road. There've been no funds raised.
Well,
So
the question was it in the budget
no,
or a warrant article in the
there may have,
previous years?
I'm wondering-
back in I want to say maybe 2014. It expired in 2019. The bonding for Caleb Hill Road. I think it was, our portion was either 540 or 580,000, and then it was an 80-20 split. But the authority to bond expires after 5 years if it's not used. So that expired in 2019. I'm pretty certain of those dates. So in any event, this effectively becomes a referendum on whether the town really wants to proceed forward with that, because it's going to be a lot of work for the professional staff to meet all the requirements that the state has, even for the engineering piece of this project. And what this is going to give us, if this were to go through, is this would give us a more realistic cost estimate of what it's going to take. Because if it exceeds the amount of money that the legislature has set aside for this road, then that's on the town's, that's the town's responsibility and not the state. So in any event, the next item is road, streets, bridges. Typically, we've had 90,000 in there based on the projects that the director has identified. We'll only need to put in 75,000 this next year. Highway equipment, he's pretty well set on, and we'll only be putting in 10,000 this next year. The island capital reserve, 10,000. The revaluation fund will be in the next to last year of, or will be in the last year in 23 of our setting money aside for that. 24 will be our reval year. Improving and maintaining lakes, that's for milfoil remediation. The senior center, that's the amount that we put in this last year for just general items. And then there's the issue of CBA wage increases. So
What's CBA?
so CBA is our collective bargaining agreement, and
Please.
if you look at where the market has moved in terms of wages for police from what our collective bargaining agreement says we can hire at, it's out of sync. So this is intended to bring up all the officers and people that are part of the collective bargaining agreement up to a market wage until the next time we reassess this. So that amounts to $48,000 for that particular item. And we could talk about that more if you like. The cruiser, we had talked about that. We're anticipating we'll have forfeiture monies that are available during the year to be able to outfit a third Tahoe cruiser. And then the new article, the town structure fund. So this is intended to start to put money away for those larger ticket items. We're going to have to do, we're probably going to be encumbering the money for the roof and encumbering money for either a new boiler or a new chimney or both, whatever the quotes turn out to be that are presented tomorrow night. But there are, this is intended to start to set money aside for things that are the bigger ticket items in the buildings that are going to need repair over time. The bridge bond, this will be a bond for $1 million. However, it would be contingent on receiving a $500,000 grant that would be awarded in October. And therefore we would bond and go out to borrow $500,000, which based on today's rates, which, how good are those 10 years out? But based on that, we'd be looking at about 11 cent in today's dollars, 11 cents per thousand for a 10-year bond for that $500,000.
Then why do we continue to put money in the Tilton Island Park Capital Reserve Fund?
So there are other grants for that. We have what do we have in there? $73,000. There's a survey, landscaping survey, which we have a 50% grant match for, and that's about $10,000 as well. That we're anticipating paying out of this capital reserve fund for that. And then there's other work, and again, this is probably better for Jeannie to answer, but there's the blocks that have to be reset or repaired. There's a number of other things that have to happen, but I would recommend that she would be the best to take you through those items and why we would continue to add money to that for this particular
Bridge
year.
bond is the island bridge.
The bridge bond, that's for the island bridge,
Yeah.
right? So the estimate is $1 million for that, and it would only commence if we were successful in the $500,000 grant for that that Jeannie's working on.
I have a couple questions on backtracking.
Okay.
So we lowered the 75,000 to Rose Street bridges from 90,000. We have 326. What are the plans?
So I'm glad you brought that up because this was as of the October balance. We spent 138,000 of that, and we have another 11,500 coming out. So figured take about 150,000 out of that particular number. When you see the next iteration of this, now with the November figures, you'll see at least the 138. The 11.5 is coming out of December, but essentially it'll be depleted by about 150,000 by the end of the year.
Okay, and then on the highway equipment, we have 40,187, but you said we're all set, and we're putting 10,000. Are we saving up for the next big equipment to break down, or?
The next piece of equipment we'll be purchasing will be replacing a truck in 2029. And see, I anticipate trucks lasting at least 30 years. So the next truck in line would be the 1999 International truck to be replaced.
Okay, like a dump truck or a?
So it's a six-wheel dump truck.
Six-wheel.
Okay.
CDLB class, larger truck.
What do those go for? Should I ask?
Right now, it's
300,000?
about 150,000 to replace.
Tim, do we have a CIP?
No,
Yes.
I'm working on it.
Plan.
We do.
What happened?
We have plans. We don't have a formal CIP at the moment. But he has equipment plans, road plans. We have all the individual plans.
So to minimize my impact on the town, on the residents, I try to stretch it out. So over 5 years, plan on saving a little bit of money each year. Then in 5 years, I can replace that truck without any work.
And then what is our costs every year for milfoil? That's got maintaining lakes improvements.
That's right. So the Conservation Commission, I don't know if you want to talk to this.
I'm not
Bill,
on the
but-
Conservation Commission.
Oh, I know you're
But I
familiar
know
with it,
I'm
but
familiar with every year.
They-
I'm the person that created the fund.
You're probably better
That's right.
speaking for that.
It's my petition to an article. And I've talked to the conservation officer, the conservation people about it. There is very active group on Silver Lake,
Yes.
and there is a group forming on Winnisquam. In fact, there's a couple of people in Winnisquam. Jay's Marina, he actively tries to fight milfoil, and his cove there is full of it. And I think last year, 8,000?
Yeah, I think they've spent about 7,400 or so. And they actually, in the past, I think they used some sort of treatment, but now they actually pull the plants. They dive and they
Most effective
remove
one,
them.
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Yep.
and they the Conservation Commission are the agents for this particular fund, and so they make the recommendation each year as to how much money to put into it based on what they anticipate the activity to be during the year and which areas. And the groups that come in to see them, and they provide all the information on where it was done, how many pounds that they removed.
Not over budgeting. Because you
No,
only have 50,000 in
no,
here.
that's right.
The senior center fund is 6753. We're putting 2,500. Are they saving up for something, or do you know?
No, I think it's some money was spent this last year. The water heater went, and they had to
On the building?
replace that. Yep.
They don't have a huge budget. They don't have a huge savings.
No,
No,
No.
that's part of things. It's mostly for
Things that
repairs.
happen.
that's right.
Well, it's an
Yeah.
ancient building too.
It's an old building, and the other thing to keep in mind is that while sometimes homeowners can do things more inexpensively, we have to hire commercial contractors to do any of the work. So sometimes that's more expensive.
I'm
Does-
done on that.
Oh, okay.
Does the police and public works, are the people you're missing, are they in this budget?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And
How
if
many
you
we missing?
so
You're
if
both missing like two or
so if you
two.
go to page if you
Huh?
go to please.
Pardon?
Public
Are we
works,
gonna have
page
them
eight.
up individually and talk about their budget?
And you'll see underneath,
Well, we've kind of gone through it, but
Oh,
we're
two
happy
open
to ask
positions.
questions.
Yep. there are 2 open positions there. And then if you turn to page, should be the next page, page 11 for the police department, you'll see that there are 3 open positions. And you have the best people to talk about these 2 budgets. So I
Would either of you like to come up and, be sure, or just inform us of how things are going and what you're planning?
He's new, he's not.
Tim, you
Well,
bet.
Yes,
He's
yeah.
new in his position.
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's all right.
Jet it right out. How did that chip off the bat? Do we dare ask how?
I wouldn't say overwhelmed. I would just say 2022. I'll be happy when it's over and done with. The hiring's actually has been better than it had the last probably year and a half, 2 years since we moved over to the PD. We lost a lot of people. So I think last time I looked since 2020 or 2021, when we moved from the old PD to the new PD, we only have 4 officers that are the same since then. That was 15 to 16 other officers that were not. So a lot of new faces, a lot of new people, but and that's kind of some of the reason why we have, Tim was talking about like the CBA. We're trying to be competitive. We're trying to retain the officers that we have right now. And we also are trying to keep up with new officers, hiring the new officers. You only have one chance when somebody comes into the door and they want to come to your police department. They might have other people getting bonuses and things like that. And I won't get too off on that, but really bonuses to me, I would rather put that into the officers that are there, and help that whole growth of the hourly wage than to give somebody a $5,000 bonus and you don't know what's going to happen. They could be gone in 3 months, 6 months, and then someone new person pulls up with a brand new Harley, and that causes a little bit of turmoil. So I mean,
Have anybody coming up for retirement? Since it's new faces, right?
we do have, I would say, one potentially.
In 23 or?
Yeah, it could be,
Or later.
yeah, it could be 23, 24. It all depends. Eligible, let's just say that. Yeah, yeah, definitely eligible. And we've hired, we've hired 3 or 4. One just got out of the academy. We have one right now as a field training, and he's going to the academy soon. And we just hired a sergeant to fill another spot. And we're doing backgrounds on another officer right now. So I mean, things are looking up. Let's just say that. So everything's good in that end. Let's say the PD's great. Obviously, it's a new year for me trying to get the budget and figure everything out. I think I did well. Let's just say that. That's too crazy. Let's go.
Yeah, I don't see much. I mean, what Tim showed us of the increases, a lot of it is,
And
as long as
decreases,
both your departments are just stuff you don't have any control over.
Yeah.
The gas,
Mhm.
there's,
These sheets
you
were
know,
helpful.
Yeah, the new
yeah.
the new uniforms, even that, it's only goes from 11.4 to 13. That's just having that when we get up to full staff. Because when we do, you have to outfit everybody. There's obviously vests and things like that need to be, other things but you're right, you can't control. But really, as you can see, the increases are, again, things like you said, and then you can see the decreases. And then with the weapons expense, we dropped that down from the 3 to the 5. We know that we were good. And we ended up getting the new purchase or the new guns, trade-ins on those guns. And what we're going to be looking into is the RDS, which is the red dot system. And that's going to help, obviously, with a lot of things. It's going to help, obviously, save on ammo. It's going to help when the officers have those weapons. If you have to use those weapons, you got to count for every shot that goes out on those. So the companies that we're right now, we're trying to find who's the lowest cost on those, Glock or SIG. So I thought if we're able to get that, then I would obviously lower that from the 5 to the 3 because we're pretty good right now. Some of that stuff also takes care of, the weapons expense takes care of the taser, the maintenance of the tasers, the batteries and things like that. So
Do you guys utilize as many grants as you can?
it's harder right now. We try to, but when it went from, the chief, a captain, a lieutenant, a sergeant, or 3 sergeants, and now it's me and then 2 sergeants, very stretched. That's, as you can see, a lieutenant position is open, detective, and then patrol, lieutenant and detective. Hopefully we can in-house, and then that would obviously make them patrol those 2 spots. That's why we have the 3. Once we get a lieutenant in place, and then we have the 2 sergeants like we do, it's going to be a little bit easier to get those grants and use those things to be able to tap into that. So,
I mean, does the town administration do anything with looking at grants for all the departments or?
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that should be
And
the main
some
resource.
of these grants, so like like vests, there's some that are kind of almost automatic every year that are easier to take advantage of than other ones. So it just depends. Sometimes there's one-off ones, that just come out and just requires time. It's all time.
Yeah, like there's a body camera grant out right now to help with the body cameras. We obviously have had those since 2015. I know when I was actually going to talk to Tim, that contract on that one ends in May of next year. But we're looking at, there's a grant out right now to help with like the software and the police departments that don't have the body cameras. So it'll help with us to hopefully take care of that software and the things that we need to take care of. So, and then there's the highway safety grants. We're out there, we're doing that stuff, but to put the time into getting those grants. So I've always gone back and forth with that gentleman from the state. And obviously when we get up to staffing and able to do those, we're going to do those. We still do the traffics, anything that we can do with traffic, we get out there and do that. So
We need more tickets.
yeah.
Except for us.
I keep telling you, parking lot drive
I
down
know.
Winter Street, you get all kinds of speeders. They come around that
We don't get
corner.
the money for
Pay
that,
that
though.
too.
That's the problem.
What's that?
We don't get the money for speeding tickets.
Mm-mm.
On the
No, you
state
need more
highway?
fees. You need
Yeah.
more fees. for
Fees.
permits.
Yeah.
Stop
Parkings, things like that
giving
would be.
speeding tickets on Route 3.
What's that?
Stop giving out speeding tickets on Route 3. Call up the state police and
Yeah,
say,
there you
hey,
go.
you guys go spend your gas and
I'm
chase
not
them.
jealous, upset about speeding tickets, but the school speed limit, yeah.
When was the last year that the police department was fully staffed with 20 employees?
Oh boy, geez.
2017?
I want to say 19 into 20, I would say. Yeah. It's been a lot. Let's just
It's
say
not
that.
just you, though. It's
Maybe
everybody.
No,
I
it
should have
is.
said
Yeah, right.
It's
a full year. Because I looked back, because it's harder for me. I have to use the annual reports and whatnot.
Mhm.
And I was back into the 2015. The reason I ask that question is basically we're very seldom fully staffed with 20 employees that lasts a full year.
Yeah, yeah.
So why do we consider that our staffing needs? And why do we need all of these employees in the police department for a population of less than 4,000?
Just
And we have about, what, 40 miles of roads now?
Yep.
Tilton is only 11 miles, was it 11.6 miles at its longest?
And I would say that, I mean, you go to Northfield, but with all the traffic and all the property crimes that we have, I mean, with all the businesses on top of that, we're at Walmart at least 2 times a day, every day. And that's a case, and that's maybe someone to bring back to the PD. It's also coverage. If you're off like that, if we're at Walmart, I get an arrest, I'm the only officer on during the day. Who's on the road the rest of the day?
Can't the sergeants go get them?
Yeah, if we have the sergeants at a full staff, right now we're low staffed right now that I'm pretty much the supervisor during the day until 1 o'clock when that sergeant comes on. So if he gets, an arrest or she gets an arrest and they're in the booking room, that's I'm the road. And then, think questions of grants being things like that. Just it's limited time. So I would say that it's not your typical day. We have all the businesses is what it is, and then you have the rural, you have all the houses, you have all the other things, and then we had the CAP program, we had the malls, things like that. There's a lot of things that go on in Tilton that I wish that we had full staff, or at least close to full staff, so we could handle a lot of those things and put a lot more attention into other areas that are
My
being
point
missed.
is, we very seldom do have full staff, and we get by, we manage.
You want me to tell you how many hours I work this year without pay? A lot.
Then you're gonna get burnout too, so.
Well, and that's the thing. I manage, we go. The thing is with our job is we can't just pick up the phone and say, hey, we're understaffed. We can't take a call. We have to adapt. So you're never going to see that break. We're just going to forge on. We just pick up the slack. And that's the bad part. I've said that to a couple of people like, well, it's going to look bad after a while when we don't have full staff, but if you can't hire, you can't hire. So that really hurts because it's a double-edged sword. It's, you can't hire. It looks like we're managing, but we're managing because we're the police department. We just move, keep going. We did get IMC, which is great. IMC mobile is what it is. So it's in the cruiser. So it's going to help us to be on the road and be able to do those reports and not be in the PD doing those reports. So these little things that we're trying to help, but I'd be happy to get close to full staff. I mean, we haven't even been close to full staff. We have one officer right now that's in Texas for a year, so for military. So that hurts. And that, everybody that we have goes, one's the SRO during the summer, goes to the school, and then that gentleman went to Texas. So, yeah.
That just so that you know that individual is only budgeted for the time period of the year that they're expected to come back, not for the entire year. The other thing too, that I don't know that the chief mentioned, but he's had to implement mandatory overtime. And if you read any of these things about police officers and police departments, as mentioned, you don't want to have people burning out because people that are tired and burned out don't make as good decisions as people that are rested and have the proper time off and time with their families. So they've really been juggling, and I think, from my vantage point, if I may, the fact that we're not at that particular number level. If you look at also the experience level that we've had, the number of years in the job now versus what we had back, say, in 2018, 2015, 16, 17, 18, there's a vast difference in experience level. To take any resource from them, I think would be really difficult.
To bounce off Catherine's a little bit, if we've been budgeting for that for all these years, where's the money going? Different line or?
So no, and it has. So what has typically happened is we've budgeted based on what we've had. So in prior years, the the only time we would end up with, if you will, layman's term of surplus, even though it's technically not surplus, but the difference between what we budgeted and what we expended in prior years, it was usually because we had someone leave, and then there's a time lag between, finding, or noticing the position, seeing if anyone's interested in a promotion or lateral or whatever it was, and then going out and advertising and interviewing and background checks and so on and so forth. So you have this time period that builds up a budget not being spent. This past year, the difference was we had scaled in the budgeted hires throughout the year. So I don't know if you recall, but there was one starting, estimated to start in March, April, so on and so forth. So they were staggered in. But unfortunately, because of the pay scale and everything else that was going on in the economy and the demand for police and people leaving, police forces, it was just an awful hiring environment. And we weren't able to hire for the majority of the year. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, but so what we ended up with is a great deal of money left over at the end of the year. And as I mentioned last week, the board had returned that money and more through the tax rate in buying down the tax rate using our fund balance. Thank you. So what you'll see is that it won't be a 1-for-1 this year, and it's dependent upon the number of encumbrances that we're going to have. And I mentioned the boiler, chimney, that sort of roof repairs that have to be done here. But so whatever those amounts of money come out to be, those will come out of that money, and then we should return to our fund balance a healthy portion of what we spent in bringing down the tax rate. So to answer your question, it hasn't disappeared. It's available, for tax rate purposes and other emergencies.
Do you move it on, because the overtime is like double for 22 compared to what is budgeted, and we're budgeting the same amount. The excess from salaries, does that go to that line? Because otherwise we're not budgeting enough on that line.
Well, with the
So-
police department, you always have to have coverage. So if you don't
Yeah.
have the full-time person working the full-time line, it's going to come out of your overtime.
That's right.
Well,
Because
that's-
the
yeah, that's
people
why it's so
working, it's out of
exactly.
your
Value.
overtime.
Yeah, that's why the overtime is high.
So those two
Yeah,
move.
very high.
Christine, he's had to implement mandatory overtime. So it's been ordered. They've been ordered to work overtime each and every week.
Right, but we didn't budget enough, and I'm looking at the other lines, but we have already used 77% of the salary line, 59% of the, this is for 22. We've got, almost double on overtime, and we're still only looking at 50,000 for 2023.
That's because of the anticipation of the staffing for 23. And if you were to look at that other document I provided you last week, which was the financial summary report, in there you can see that as of the beginning of December, we were only 80% spent for the entire year in terms of expenses. So, and the majority of that being underspent was in the police budget, because it's not just the officers' wages line. Everything extrapolates off of that. New Hampshire retirement amount, the health insurance, taxes, so it's if you look at $1 here, it's really $1.43 elsewhere in that budget.
I just want to make sure we're budgeting enough of that.
So this 22 budget is exactly what we were just talking about. The regular wages, they're at 77% spent with only 3 weeks left of the year, right?
Well, this
Yeah,
is
this is
that's a
from
month.
November.
Yeah.
All right, so
yeah.
with a month left, you've spent
Yeah.
77%. But your overtime, you've spent
double.
195%, right?
Yeah.
Because there's
It-
nobody
It
working
evens out, right?
regular
right.
full-time shifts.
If
they're
you
all
remember
doing
the bottom
overtime.
line budget.
So
We're-
it is a bottom line
We're
budget. so.
confident, we're confident in the officers' wages line and the overtime.
That we have
If you
enough.
get some bodies in the positions,
Yeah.
you'll be good.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, there's been an uptick. We went probably, at least 8 months, 7 or 8 months of just trying to hire, trying to get people in the door. And the last, like I said, 4 months, we've hired 3 or 4 people. So that's great. I mean, I'm hoping to be at full staff by springtime or into June. That's my plan. And it's looking great. And I feel real confident about that. So I didn't want to come in when Tim and I were talking about that increase of the overtime. I didn't want to come in and then throw let's do another 15,000. That's just not what I want to do. I know we can balance that back out and be where we need to. We increased that last year when Chief Pizer was here a little bit, and we were doing good for a while as the year started to go. We lost an officer, we lost another officer, and then you're trying to balance that, and then the gentleman had to go to military. That hurts. And then you have maybe 2 or 3 that want to work a lot of overtime, but they can only work so much. And then what happens is you burn those 3 out and the other ones don't want to work. So what you do is you put it across the board and say, hey, mandatory 2 hours extra every day. If we can cut them out early, we do. But then that is across the board. And then that still is able to fill. We have details. We have events that they want to get filled. Tanger all weekend from Black Friday until the end of the year, they want officers there. Walmart, all these other places that need, and it's hard for us to fill. That's the big problem, is our detail is down. The officers being able to work the details because they're just working too much. They're working at the PD. So when a detail comes up, we're calling other towns to come in and work our details. That's less money for us. Because when we work a detail, we get a portion of it and the town gets a portion of it for using the cruiser and all that. If you're not there and have an officer to take that, a Belmont, a Samberton, a Franklin comes in, they use their cruiser, they bill out, they get the money, but they're in our town. That does not help us at all. So we need to get back to where that's helping Tilton. And we have a lot of officers that would love that detail and to do those. It's tough right now. But spirits are up. I mean, we have a great crew. And there's no one that's like, oh, I got to get out of here. They're here, and I'm excited. We just need to balance that out and get people in the door. So
I only brought it up because even with the salaries, you're still 32% in the hole, and as long as you have confidence that the 50,000 is going to cover you, then you're still in 22. You're still in the hole.
Yeah.
More tickets.
Yeah. And again, like Tim said, you're bringing newer officers in at a lower rate than the officers that had left are at the higher tier. So you're bringing these in, it's less money. So it's less when they do an overtime shift, it's less. And I feel confident that it will all pan out. 2 years worth of, at least this year, but 2 years going, I just want to get people in the door. That's what it is.
The downside is though you have new young officers, so you have to spend more time.
Yes.
Other officers have to spend more time training and working.
Yes. An FTO program is 12 weeks. They only go to the academy, it's another 17 weeks. So you get an officer today, fresh in the door. By the time they're on the road by themselves, after FTO and everything else, you're looking at midsummer. And then that's a roll of the dice. But that's a roll of the dice.
Right.
They're on the road, and then you hope by themselves they like the job and they do it. I mean, you're going to know by then. But anytime, things could happen. They could fail out of the FTO program, 12 weeks. They could fail out of the academy. Anything could happen. So you take that chance. And when you have a new officer from a different town, it all depends on where they're from. They're from, Franklin or Samberton. They know the area. Maybe 4 weeks FTO, less. Somebody further up north, down south, you're going maybe 6 weeks. So you try to, but then you have to think in your head they're going to make more if you, hire somebody with experience, but you put them on the road quicker. And,
Do you make them do a contract when you put them in the academy?
Yes.
Good. So
Yep.
if they leave before whatever, they're 3 years or whatever?
Correct. Yep. Yep. For non-certified. Yep.
Well, I want to thank you for submitting a bottom line that's less than last year's.
Yeah.
I was excited because I look at that first.
I know you do. I know you well.
Evidently too well.
Well, and the thing is too is, what I love, Chief Cormier had Chief Cormier, and he had captain, and he had lieutenant, and he had a sergeant. Would Abe love that? I would love that. I'm not asking for that though. I'm asking, we have a lieutenant, and that's where it's going to be, and it's going to be sergeant. So when we say cutting, that's getting cut up here. But patrol we need to have officers on the road. We need to have coverage. We need to police our town. They don't have other towns coming over to help or having to police our town because we can't fill the roads. That's what we don't want. So,
And that was one of the board's priorities at the time, to have a truly working chief.
well,
Right, right.
They're taking a little farther, aren't they?
Lately.
Abusive.
oh, I mean, it worked out. So when we didn't have the sergeant for about a month, he went to another department. I just was the sergeant Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Then my chief duties were in between, but Thursday, Friday did the best. So you make it work, adapt and overcome. And that's kind of what we do. So good.
Great, thank you.
Thank
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
good luck.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Kevin, you want to come down?
He's like, no.
Just-
Catherine's gonna like you even more because your number is even a
I
little higher.
No, both of you guys have been, I think, done really well. I think, most of the increases
3.8.
are just the stuff that you can't control.
Yes, that's exactly right. Stuff we can't control.
Well, and your bottom line as well is less than last year's too. So
Yeah, going into this year,
it's exciting. I mean,
when I started working with my budget, working with Tim, my first priority was I knew next year is going to be difficult for a lot of people, a lot of residents, and of all years to try to really trim my budget, this is it. But like you said, there are some things that I can't trim. The cost of fuel, the cost of salt, things that we need to operate efficiently and adequately for the town. But things that I was able to kind of fine tune and adjust to a lower cost was like this past year, we cleaned all the catch basins. Now that they're all clean, I can go every other year with that process. And that's almost $5,000. So that was right off the top. We have been short 2 people this past year. I do have 2 possible new hires I'm presenting to the board tomorrow night. With any luck, I'll proceed with those 2. One of them is a CDL-A driver. So we won't have to pay for schooling to get our Class A CDLs. We'll potentially have one on payroll. I'm excited because he's kind of a young fella and somebody that I know I'm putting the cart before the horse, but I'm hoping that we can come to an agreement. But anyway, things are looking up for our department. My guys are getting tired and going into this plow season. It's been difficult, keep the morale up with the guys. I'm going to have a plow route this year without any question. I have to because I have three other guys and I have 4 plow routes plus the sidewalk machine to run.
We're supposed to get a foot of snow.
Exactly. Yes. So, and everybody is feeling the stress and the workload. We've had to prioritize and just fine tune how we tackle projects this past year. Having 2 new guys or a full crew, I should say, will make things a little easier for my crew and they won't get burnt out, especially if we have a couple of really bad storms this winter. I wanted to mention the highway fund.
Yes, excuse me.
Uh-oh.
My Marine is home. I don't think I'd see him. He's a Marine.
Thank you for
Congratulations.
joining.
Great.
Thank you.
On your way to Japan? Yeah.
Right now?
After the holidays. But I didn't know he was.
Surprise. I told her I'd be here at least for Christmas. I didn't tell her.
Great.
And that was actually.
Pleasurable.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
6:45.
Yeah, nice.
Nice, smart
Yeah,
man.
that's
You
nice.
just made her whole day.
I
Yeah.
was told he was Not be able to come home and have to go straight to Japan.
I know that struggle. My brother was in the Marine Corps.
Quick, ask her
Desert
whatever you
Storm.
want now. She's.
That's
So we done with Kevin? Whatever you want, Kevin, whatever you want. So we're all set with Kevin?
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to mention was my paving project this past year was reduced by quite a bit. That would equate to the savings that I have in that fund going into next year, which was why I was able to reduce that fund going into next year, because I have a surplus in that line. The other thing I wanted to mention was we were able to purchase some equipment for our sidewalk machine this past year without using my equipment fund. That's why there was a 40,000 still left in that account carrying over into next year. So that those were the big things that happened with my budget this past year that carried over into next year. And like I said about the equipment, I'm not anticipating starting to really have to save for a new truck until 2024, with a purchase intended in 2029. Other than that, like I said, I tried to reduce all my other lines as much as I could. The repairs to the building happened this past year. It was basically servicing all of the heating units in the building, which was costly. We did a lot. We were able to do a lot of repairs in-house, but there was a lot of things that we did have to source out. So those were the savings that equated that I didn't have to ask for next year's budget.
I have a question, sorry.
Oh, don't be sorry. It's okay.
I saw the salt increase. Are we getting the same amount?
Yes,
quantity?
yes.
Did we run out last year?
No,
Okay.
no. I
We
budget.
were gonna have a lot more of this snow this year.
So I budget 500 tons
Okay.
each year, and this year we had, going from last winter into this winter, I had about 60 tons left over. With
Nice.
money left over in that budget, I was able to buy another 100 tons going into December. So, and that's what's in the salt shed now. So I've pretty much figured out the logistics with having enough for the current winter and having enough left over for the winter coming up.
Because the price never goes down, right?
It does not go
Right.
down. This year, I actually had to think about, so the vendor sets the price around $88 a ton. But I also had to think of maybe a surcharge for the trucking outfits for the cost of fuel to cover their cost. So yeah, it could be $88 a ton, but to get it delivered to my facility, it might be another, $100, $150 because of a fuel spike that the trucking company has to then put on our plate instead of their own. So that was the anticipation going into this next year. It wasn't a huge increase, but it was just enough to maybe cover our bases.
I think, Tim, you said we were gonna do recycling at the
That is
facility.
correct.
We don't need anything, new equipment or
So,
bins or whatnot?
well, so there was a mention of grant money. So there is a grant that we will be applying for to cover additional costs for purchasing things related to the recycling, storage containers, dumpsters, things of that nature. The other big project that I wanted to mention was we're having three-phase brought onto the property at DPW so that we can now operate three-phase electric equipment, meaning compactors and balers and things like that, which kind of goes into our plan for the transfer station of being able to handle the recyclables that, because residents are still going to want to recycle. Some residents are still going to want to recycle, and we're going to make it so that they can bring it to our facility and we can handle it in-house. Now, there's going to be a transition period where we start out, we kind of assess what the demand is, and then we adjust accordingly. So, and that's how it's been broken up. It's been broken up into two phases. The first phase is getting power onto the property in one baler. We'll figure out how to do the logistics, handle it, get a market for it, and then
second phase, maybe a trash compactor and some other equipment to really be able to provide the service for the town to handle all the recycling. So,
There is some money, revenue too. in
Yes.
recycle. I know years ago, they used to have a
Cardboard's a big one now.
trailer and you could
Sure.
fill it with
Paper.
cardboard
Sure.
and they would just
So
run that off.
going into this, we don't know what that volume is going to be. So it's really hard to estimate what that is going to be.
Right.
So there's going to be a transition and a learning period.
You're not considering a commingling single stream type of
No.
recycling.
Oh, no.
I
We're
don't
going
want my
to,
recycles in the ocean.
it's going to be,
Right.
What are you starting with, like plastic,
Cardboard.
cardboard, plastic and
The
cans.
basics?
Yes, basics. National Resource Recycling Association, I'm working very closely with.
No glass.
No, I'm trying to keep glass out because of the tonnage, the weight, and it's very hard to get rid of, do something with. So,
Somebody,
yeah, we've got some big things coming.
one state was putting it in their asphalt.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, yes,
Is it your
drainage, ditches, the whole
Utah?
deal, yeah. So,
I didn't think there's any bad plastic at all.
no, but we do have to do something with it.
Yeah.
And it makes the other,
I guess we could shred it and bale it.
Reuse it.
Sure. There is a market for it. It just doesn't pay out as much as the cardboard or the paper products.
So if your recycling takes off, do you have room to put the stuff
Yes,
under cover and stuff,
yes,
like the cardboard after you bale it and stuff?
yes. We'll have to
Good.
maybe clear some trees and
Mhm.
maybe level out some areas, but we do have enough real estate to be able to do that. Yes. There's going to be some changes at DPW over the next 3 or 4 years.
Because I know the cardboard has to stay dry.
Hmm.
It doesn't.
So with the grant money, I'm hoping to purchase 40-foot tractor trailer boxes
Mhm.
for that type of storage.
Yep.
Because I know that when a company comes to pick up the commodities, they have to, it's a quick load and ship out. So it would be a situation where I collect maybe an entire 40-foot truck box worth of material, then make the phone call, just have somebody come and ship it out. We have one shipping fee and the payout would be greater for the tonnage, things like that. So, yeah, we've got some big things coming.
Great.
I noticed no, that's a PD.
The merit raise went
Merit
down.
raise pool.
Right.
That
they
was
all
for
did,
4.
yeah.
6 employees.
Your merit raise pool is for 6 employees.
Yes,
Parks, buildings and ground maintenance.
Mhm.
The pavilion roof,
that was already replaced.
Done.
it's been replaced.
2 weeks ago.
Who did that?
Jake or
Jake or Jasmine.
Jasmine.
Okay. Nice.
Starts with a J.
And then highway training,
Yes. It should have been reduced.
it is,
Yes. Because of the CDL,
right, but isn't there other training that,
there is, that's why there should be some left in that account.
it's
Yeah,
like $500?
yeah, it's minimal money to have people go to the T2, T-squared classes. It's like $100 to everybody go, so it's very minimal throughout the year.
Now, where do the employees stand as far as the pesticide and
Mine-
herbicide use?
My license is current.
And you're the only one down there that has a current
Yes.
license? Better not plan on going anywhere.
If you realize, Kathy, I'm pretty committed to the town of Tilton.
Just want to hear it again.
Yes,
You got a good 20 years
All
left
right, good.
Sure.
Sounds good.
yeah, I got 20 years left in me.
to work, I mean,
Sure.
not in general.
Oh, my goodness.
Thank you.
Yeah, again, thank you for
Yeah, yeah.
submitting a
Thanks.
bottom line. It's
You're welcome.
less than last year. This
Yeah,
year.
we appreciate that.
Okay, we can't wait to get out of that.
I know.
It's all good. Go
Get some rest.
You know what I did learn? You have to have a stupid sticker now. I need a
Stupid
sticker.
They
I
have
will
it right
say your guides
downstairs.
I
are
know.
super friendly when you go.
I gotta
They
get
don't
some
check
stickers.
them in.
Yeah.
No, they did. My
They
husband
should.
went.
I just
Unless they
slide in.
recognize you from town, they should be
Oh,
checking.
no, my
Yeah.
husband went and
I
they
leave
asked
it in
him.
my wallet.
They
so I
got-
don't
All
know.
right. If I was
Oh,
with it, he wouldn't.
They've all got the dad talk.
Oh.
Nobody gets a free pass.
They
And
don't
that's good.
either.
Treat everybody the same.
Thank you, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Right.
Do we have minutes
Oh, it's on page
from last
2.
week? No.
Okay.
Um,
I love that.
Because I stapled, I was trying to-
I'm only tired.
So, do we meet next week and start voting on stuff?
What's next week?
We
Uh,
should have,
Well, we didn't go over the rest of this budget either.
but, I've been told that
Right,
Lockmere
Lockmere
will be here
next week, okay.
All right, let's take that.
21st?
I bet $1.
We haven't gone over this budget.
Huh?
The rest of this budget? Are we gonna go over it?
Um,
Oh, you mean because Tim's here?
I've been over it myself. What did you want to do?
Damn it, we're
Well.
close.
Tim's been over it
Do
with
you have
us, so,
particular questions, Kevin?
yeah. I mean,
Did you also see my email from last week? You know, I
I
grouped,
printed it.
I blocked
I
you.
grouped the
Yes.
merits together, the 20,000 for, I think, 20 people.
And those merits are based on 3%.
That's correct.
So let's start there.
Okay,
Is that
so
standard 3%?
a
No.
number of towns are much higher than
Oh, they are.
our 3%.
The state of New Hampshire isn't 3%,
I don't know what the state of New Hampshire is. I can
about
tell you.
1.5, if they're
State's
lucky.
always 2 years behind everybody else.
And most of the businesses around you are
Don't
not.
have any, yeah.
Yeah, some of them will, they don't even do percentages, but if they did, they,
50 cents.
yeah. cool.
I
So,
know several of these
So I mean, my
towns
point is the
8%,
people that are
Yeah.
going to,
8%.
that are
so
going to
did
be
you hear
paying
your
for
budget
this.
committee member?
I've been looking at what towns are doing. Some are doing 7 and 8% this year. It's crazy.
Okay, well,
Meredith?
if I lived in Center Harbor, that probably wouldn't excite me too much, but I
Hampton.
live in Tilton.
Campton did 8% this year.
Well, like I
But are
said,
they just trying to play catch
if
up?
I lived
No,
in,
no, that's what it's a cost of living and it's
but
what's out there right now.
Campton, if you compare the economics in Campton to Tilton, they're a little different.
Campton has a lot less.
The other thing I would just mention is when you
As far as
look at,
businesses.
when you look at the other opportunities,
But
you
more
have to,
residential.
you really have to think about where town employees would be going. Would they be going to work locally at another business, or would they be going into another local government job in another municipality that would therefore, in other words, are you staying within the industry or are you leaving the industry? And if you're staying in the industry, as Deb said, that, I mean, I've gotten a lot of concern from the department heads that this is too low. And we talked about 4% for a while. And, but again, we're trying to keep it as moderate as possible. But there are other towns that have not only cost of living increases or steps, plus they have, on top of that 6% increase, no merit.
But I'm talking
Just
about
an
the
increase.
ability to pay for that. The
Right.
people, the taxpayers in
Right.
this town will have to pay for that.
So that's $20,000. That's $20,000. It's
Right.
less than 3
So,
cents.
and I wouldn't
on
have
the
a
tax
problem with that. I wouldn't have a problem with 4% if that was given to each employee. But if you look back through the history of some employees we have still working today, their rate of increase far exceeds the merit rate percentage. And if you compare some of those positions to the outside world, they're making some really, really great money compared to others in the same position in other communities.
Oh, I wouldn't
But-
disagree. I mean, we have some positions that, that based on the amount of effort put into the job are probably making a much, much higher, if you look at a percent, a dollar amount per wage. I mean, we have a couple of positions that are paid a set stipend. And it doesn't matter whether it's 5 hours that week, 10 hours that week, 40 hours that week, they get paid the same amount of money. So it's based, not on activity, but based on, the wage for that. And they're very experienced people. But it, so I guess the thing you have to look at is the idea of merit by itself suggests that the board is going to make a decision as to if someone is deserving of, more, they, decide whether that's going to happen for a person or not. Some people might get less, some people might get more. It's not a set, it's not set in stone. So they have to earn it. Whereas many towns have a step process where they just move up a step each year, or they have a cost of living, or some towns have a combination of the two. So they go up a step and they also get a cost of living percent increase. We don't have anything like that. We just have the one merit. So if you're performing, theoretically, if you're performing, at a given level, you should be able to earn that percent increase. If you're underperforming, theoretically, if you're evaluated properly, you're going to be earning less than that. And if you're overperforming, you're going to earn more than that.
Is there a concept of a cap? I mean, there's,
That's
I
no
remember
problem.
there's some, like a secretary could be here for 50 years and they'd be earning more in this case than the administrator, wouldn't they? I mean, that
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense to me
Right.
because each job should have within its scope a cap on what, or maybe it's a national or a regional basis for limiting that job's ability to make more money than it's worth.
And I do think the board has exercised that individually with certain positions.
Mhm.
They've recognized that, but there isn't a set schedule, just as there's no set steps.
You also
Or
have the
cost of
other
living.
issue, the other reverse issue. Someone's been in a position making $18 an hour, and you have 3 openings, and to get anybody in those positions, you got to bring somebody in at $18 an hour, and that person's been in the job for 5 years. So you have the same issue in this environment, this
But we don't in
problem
this
filling
town.
positions.
We shouldn't have that in this town because
It happens.
Well, that's a job, that's everywhere right now.
No, but I'm
but
just
we
saying
don't
it's
have that
reverse.
here.
It's the same, it's
Well,
another issue.
That's why you have that warrant article at the PD.
Right.
Because we're having to hire people in some cases at more competitive rates than what we're paying people that have been here longer.
And that's the
Very
first thing
similar
that
to what
happens.
she said.
is-
So that's why
Morale.
that warrant article is to sort of rebalance and address retention and also hiring.
But that is very specific to the PD,
That's
to
correct.
those salaries.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, history has shown if you study salaries and you look at how they have increased, the merit raise pool is not being used with a cap on it, as Bill suggested. And, our department heads, we just met 2 of them, have always been good about resolving the issue that we spoke of, where we have somebody that's been overlooked for years and is still making far less than that position typically earns in other communities. And the selectmen have very wisely increased it to where it should be. But we have some wages that far exceed where they should be.
And to add on that, even in the step program, you look at the state of New Hampshire, you go 5 steps. I work there. And then all you get is cost of living, and all 5 of those steps are not 3%.
The state has 9.
So the equity,
Oh,
there's
it
no
must have
equity
increased
in it.
since I worked there and it was 5.
No, it has 9 steps.
I was there.
And when you get to the 8th step, it takes you 3 years to get to step 9. But there's 9 steps.
Yeah.
But
we
in this,
never had
in this,
five,
in
more
this
than 5.
hiring environment right now, with the state, you used to come in at step 1 or 2 or 3. People are telling them, no, I want to come in at step 7. And they say, okay, because they can't fill positions. So it's the same issue. It's more money. It's costing them more money to fill positions. And these are people that are not necessarily should be coming in at step 6 or 7 based on experience, but they need to fill the position. And so it's a tough time right now for any.
And who's choosing these 20 people, the selectmen?
Which one?
Those are the positions that are eligible for merit. So collective bargaining agreement individuals are not eligible for merit increases.
Well, their raises are all in their
They're
agreement.
in the
so,
agreement.
Yeah, so that's not
these
really open
20
negotiation.
people-
It's when they do the contract that they negotiate.
I mean, our police department's by far the highest per capita
Mhm.
in the state. But when I was on the planning board and we were starting the growth at exit 20, that's what all the analysts were saying, well, yeah, this is great. It's going to help your tax base. But in the long run, you're going to pay a lot more for infrastructure costs. And it's all just coming true,
It
you
is.
know? So,
It's more work for everyone.
I mean, and that now that residential appraisals are outstripping that of commercial, that just puts more burden on residential taxpayers.
I mean, those are really issues for the board. You know, I would, if you have a recommendation to the board, address that with them. But, all good ideas.
We just need to find more revenue sources for one
Yeah.
thing. I mean,
Well,
you know, like the rooms and meals, are we getting a better rate now for that or?
It was significantly increased
No.
because of the amount of money available that the legislature put in.
Everybody went out to eat, right?
It's still, the problem is it's still population based. So we're never going to get an
What do you mean, what do
equitable
you mean
share.
population base?
It's literally population based. So Northfield, which has less rooms and meals revenues available to them, makes about 1.5 times what we make in rooms and meals revenue.
You don't get what you make in your town. It's
No.
statewide.
It's
It's a percentage
based-
of your population.
Well,
It's
that's-
just population based. So
Okay.
it's so much money per resident, basically. And I think the theory there is because the people that live here are, you know, who go out to eat and so on and so forth.
But they did increase it last year.
It did
It
increase
increased,
considerably.
but it's still, I mean, because if you look at Samberton and Northfield,
Mhm.
in terms of what we bring in for rooms and meals versus what neighboring, you know, municipalities bring in,
Yeah.
it's very candidly, it's not a fair distribution of that.
What is the reasoning for that? Is it
Just-
like
Based on
a school
population.
formula or
Just-
something?
It's a formula.
It's just a
Yeah.
formula.
Good luck
Just-
choosing one.
I mean, like we're saying, we have those businesses here and which makes our infrastructure needs to take care of those businesses to make them
But we're also
available is
we're also
cost us
collecting the
more.
taxes for all those commercial buildings.
What's that?
We're also collecting the taxes for all those commercial buildings, right? That goes into our tax base.
Right.
I mean, they don't just build them and then they don't pay
I
anything.
guess.
They're paying
Right.
a commercial rate.
Yeah, it's about 50% of our tax revenue comes from commercial properties.
Okay. I guess that makes sense.
Still not fair.
No.
Can we put a toll booth somewhere?
We average 17,000 cars a day on Main Street.
I know.
A lot of cars.
One of our former chiefs
This
did
is the
suggest
average.
putting up parking meters at one point.
Right.
That lasted about 5 minutes, that discussion, I think.
That'll go over.
Well, you need
as
somebody
as sales
to,
tax.
you need a meter maid
Exactly.
too. Or someone
Well,
that,
then you can have somebody administer the parking.
right,
There
someone
you go.
that,
That's $100,000 right there
That-
between
right.
benefits and salary.
we don't have that many parking spaces to make it worthwhile.
And then the downtown businesses won't get any business because no one's going to pay to park,
Then replace them when the heads get cut off.
right?
Just what-
Yeah, because you
No,
can,
because it's right now.
because you can go to Home Depot
People
or
are
Lowe's.
they're
and-
putting cars in the front of it.
Any questions?
We don't.
Well, I'm just thinking,
Tim.
we have a section of this budget, the administration budget is up by 12.5%. I'm just surprised that we're not more curious about it. Well, I mean, I would like some
Well,
answers.
that was mostly
I would
from
like the answer, it isn't mostly,
Want
the
the administrator to come in?
$45,000.
40,000 from-
45,000
just the repairs.
that I asked about. I asked 2 questions about it. I would like some answers. I mean, I don't think Jeannie has so much to do. I'd hate to see her have to come in for that, but if you could get some answers from her, I think you know my train of thought.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah,
He's got you a number.
and electricity is up quite a
Yeah,
bit.
everybody else is.
Yes,
putting
but everybody's
names in touch.
electricity,
Insurance.
everybody's electricity, everybody's, those, all
Insurance
those
and health
things are,
insurance.
all of those things are up in the PD and the highway. The PD has far more employees, but they were able to bring their budget under last year's.
Well, is that because there's no
Well,
vehicle?
Also, if you're looking at the cover, I just point out to you that the reductions that you see here, this is the 22 authorized budget. So this includes encumbrances from 21. If you look at the bottom there, it shows.
I'm just looking at administration on its own.
Okay.
But I do have a question for you on the cover. I don't mean to interrupt
No,
you,
go
but
right ahead.
my thought process is about the young man that just came.
Sure, no, I understand.
Sewer commission, you've got total operating budget, 5,619,071. And then the sewer commission, so the total of the operating budget is actually 6 million. Down below, you have the 2022 approved budget at the total operating budget amount, and it does not include the sewer commission's budget.
That's for comparison purposes. So to look at,
Okay,
so what I was trying to demonstrate was, I didn't want to overinflate or not represent correctly the difference of the encumbrances. So the encumbrances were affected only in the operating budget of the general fund. So if you look at that 5,619,000, the encumbrances from 2021 into 2022, which was money for the sidewalk machine, money for the Tahoes, that was $128,189. So deducting that from there, what you're looking at is an apples to apples comparison of our 22 budget without those encumbrances added. Was 5,490,000, and the budget that you're looking at now is 5,633,000, or $142,000 increase, or 2.6%. So that's the apples to apples.
right, but the actual approved budget did include the sewer commission's budget.
Right, but
I mean, I guess I don't understand why you would take the sewer commission and separate it out like that when you didn't take out any outside agencies. It was just the sewer commission,
the
as
reason,
though it was a district or something.
the reason is because the sewer commission being a pass through,
It isn't a pass-through budget.
the effect for our tax purposes, is a pass-through budget. So the amount that we budget for in the appropriation is the same that we budget for in the revenues.
I mean,
And-
because it's not raised and appropriated
That's correct.
taxes.
That's correct.
Okay.
Right. But for the purposes of the Department of Revenue Administration, that's the way we show it. So what I'm trying to demonstrate here is for the purposes of what the governing body,
That answered my
the
question.
selectmen, have the oversight over, and what the budget committee certainly has the oversight over, not only the operating budget, but also the sewer commission, but the board of selectmen does not.
Yeah, you answered it with the DRA.
Okay. The
I
Trump.
forgot about that part. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yep.
I was so confused. Thank you.
Yep. I'm happy to answer any other questions in the departmental budgets. And I'll be here next week if you want to, look at those other budgets, and if there's anything I can answer or get answered for you, happy to do so.
Great.
So are we getting Jeannie in here or are we not?
What's that again?
For the administration, are we having Jeannie come in or not?
Or can she just email us
Tim's gonna be
that the,
I can.
she
I
could
can
just
request
email
that.
us the breakdown of those costs, that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I have one other,
Okay.
but I keep losing it. Sorry, my train of thought left the room. I thought I had it highlighted. Economic development.
Yes.
Is this going to be an ongoing? I thought the economic development was basically for the island bridge. That's what it was created for. And now it seems as though we have this
We have a Main Street group. I think.
added entity, I was gonna say, that's now kind of gone from that to adopting Main Street,
Yeah, so
that
it's-
we're going to be financing every year.
yes, it's, there's a committee, perhaps Selectman Ruggles or want to talk about it, but
Is that
if you look at the top of page 8, you'll see economic development. And so this, the money that's set aside is for some engineering and planning for the sidewalk between Riverfront Park and then Park Street. And then also beautification, so flags, flowers, holiday decorations, really trying to create excitement in the downtown and events. And that coincides with the events committee. Well, they'll be doing, primarily those events are going to be downtown oriented, I believe, in the spring, summer, and fall. And it's all designed to highlight the downtown and hopefully spur more revitalization and other activities by the business and property owners downtown.
The sidewalk
So this
doesn't
is
fall-
focused, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The sidewalk doesn't fall under the highway department?
Well, the work would be, but this is having to do with the engineering and planning for it.
Still sounds like highway department.
They wouldn't be doing the engineering or planning. They might be doing the work of whatever is determined. But
I mean, they'd
So are
they'd done the north side sidewalks, and then they were planning to do the southern side, but then that was put off, right?
This is the section from,
Riverfront.
Oh, that
from
one.
Riverfront Park along
Okay.
the Cropsey property and down to the siding along the river. It's what I commonly refer to as, what was it, True Green Trail.
I was gonna say.
Because True Green went into the river and.
Yeah, right.
So wouldn't the engineering be premature since the town doesn't own the property that they're trying to connect?
that I can't answer, but I can answer that.
The town doesn't own,
10,000 is, that's what that's for.
we have an
I can-
existing sidewalk in front of Riverfront that stops at the boundary. Then you have a property owner, state of New Hampshire, down to, you probably have some Cropsey land there. So isn't what I'm looking at is the engineering premature?
I can ask Jeannie to see if she can answer that question.
We've already had conversations with Mr. Cropsey, and he is on.
What about the
board.
state of New Hampshire?
So state of New Hampshire, we have discussed with as well, because we started that conversation when we did the engineering for the crosswalk that will go from Winter Street to Riverfront Park. And so those conversations have been engaged in, and the state is willing to work with us on that as well. Mr. Cropsey as well. Plus, we have a section of sidewalk right now that needs to be redone. The light posts will be coming in after the first of the year.
So you're engaged in conversation with them, but you still don't have ownership of it.
Correct.
So engineering is still premature. Because you have to go through that process. Okay.
What do they have to do? Give an easement or something?
I don't know specifically.
Not sure.
The state of New Hampshire?
I mean, like Cropsey and whoever, in order for them to put the sidewalk in, what's the process?
Well, it's two separate entities.
Yeah.
I mean,
If
do
the
they
town
actually
was going
deed
to
it to the
build a sidewalk, liability purposes, they'd probably have to own the property
So they'd have
because
to
they'll
deed
be
it.
liable for the plowing and
It would be
sand and
nice.
blah, blah, blah,
It would be nice
de-icing.
to have a sidewalk through there. Pretty-
And the section along Route 3, you can't go in, because been there, done this, you can't, when I was on the park commission building the park, which is why it stops where it does, you can't go any further into Route 3. So you would be building a sidewalk in their right of way. And then you would have to purchase property from the abutting property owner. So now you're dealing with two entities. It'll take some time.
Yeah.
I don't envy you what you have ahead of you doing it.
$5,000 for beautification.
That's
right.
We like to be.
There'll be some taking down of things and beautifying. So
Now, I know Jules Harvey got like school or somebody to build the flower boxes and put flowers. I mean, why can't we hook up with?
Kevin.
Well, Kevin built a
we've already-
I
ton
know
of
they had
flower
flowers, put all the flowers on the main street. They had the kids out there, I saw it on like Facebook or something. They put all the flowers in, so I don't see why we can't get something for free.
Well, yeah, Kevin had made a number of boxes.
Flower, but we've got flower.
Oh,
boxes.
yeah, he did the bridge one, right?
The one- Yeah, the ones along the fence and then the ones near the bridge.
True Green Trail.
You're the agricultural department at the high school
Oh, yeah.
and those kids and,
Did you park on Main Street?
they're very, very
Use
eager
my
to
new
be
one.
involved and things like that. I know I've talked to them.
Test driving my new Mazda.
They used to help the park commissioners.
Smaller than my
That was great when we had them.
You know, no, they don't.
We want to spend a gas mileage.
And
there,
Mike
that's
had to go and move to
I
Pittsburgh
know.
with them.
Well, so do we have a motion?
To adjourn.
Yes.
It gives you that impression that we're ready to leave.
I'm still game.
We're meeting next week, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
right, next week and
Is there a
to,
reason
hopefully
we meet at
Lockmere will
7,
be here.
21st,
Catherine,
What
I'll
was
be
that?
here.
Is there a reason we meet at 7 and not earlier?
Well, I was thinking that myself. I mean, would anyone want to meet
6 would be
earlier?
nice.
Scott,
6?
we're having a discussion on if this meeting time is good or if earlier is better for people.
Yeah.
Does it have to be 7?
Oh my gosh, if we're gonna meet earlier, I'm always gonna be late for a while.
I have, oh wait, no. Next week I
It's
can.
hard to
I
leave
can
the
meet
house to
earlier.
come back out for 7 when it's cold out. It's just my 2 cents. My
They
recliner
switched
was
us to 6, please. and be our
6, okay?
Copious reminders.
Well, I would think
6.
6, yeah.
Would 6 work?
I'll have a few conflicts because one of my jobs up there is to do I time the basketball games and Wednesday basketball.
Bring them with us. Bring them with you.
6:30?
Yeah, you can't time from here, so.
Or bring the students.
No, I mean, it's literally, I think it's probably 2 conflicts if I know off the top of my head. So I can check my schedule because I've got the schedule all the way through till
Well,
February.
can we just revisit this for next year?
We can do that, sure.
I don't have a life on Wednesdays.
Yeah, so they'll be in the minutes.
Meeting
yeah.
after
Once a
meeting.
month I
Yeah.
can't.
I'd like to do it earlier.
I have on another committee, so. Just once a month.
Well, I work till about 6 anyway, so I just come right over here.
I get out at 3. It's hard to come back out at 7.
Oh.
But as a rule, we don't meet boom, boom, boom like we are right now.
I couldn't even have my glass of wine before I came.
Why not?
Did you
Because I
change the
can't drive
margaritas?
after I have a glass of wine. No, it hits me hard. I can't. You don't want me here spending money after I have a glass.
Is there a motion?
To adjourn?
I thought
I think Judy
did
made
say
one.
Second.
Did you make a motion?
Sure.
Okay, yeah, second. All those in favor?
Judy did
Aye.
Aye. See you next week. Thank you.
at 7.
It's 7, right?
At 7.
7,
I'm
right,
not gonna rock
right.
the boat at this point.
That's what'll click in people's minds. We'll stay with it.